Hello and welcome to the Heart of Success podcast. I'm your host and author, Keith Washo. Super excited to introduce you to Hugh Walker. Hugh Walker was a great contributor to this book, and he's had an amazing career, a living legend in Silicon Valley. Got to know him at Creative Labs. He went on to do great things at Lexar, Micron, Dell, EMC, and now he's doing wonderful consulting work with Symphony Consulting in Silicon Valley. Hugh, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Keith. Good to see you. And thanks for the opportunity to connect again.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been 10 years since we sat down and did an interview for this book. And I thought it'd be great to share it with people. 3 of the things that you said in here that stood out and allow you to expand upon that and add some more color. The first part was, how do you grow your professional, personal life in the right way? And when it came to the professional life, you talked about, number one, you really got to understand business if you want to do well in business. And you mentioned establishing a broad perspective on the core fundamentals of the business. So you really want to see the big picture. You talked about whether you're in sales or marketing or whatever you're doing, to understand the financials, like the P&L and the balance sheet. So just don't be blind to that stuff. Be able to see the big picture and understand the financial drivers of the business. So maybe that would be a good way to start. Maybe you want to add a little bit more color and context on that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Keith. And I still believe in that, right? So, I talk, I connect with a lot of, younger, hungry tech executives, and I'm often surprised by how much they don't know about the company they're working for, right? They're invested in the product, and they believe, especially AI. I mean, just tack AI on any sentence, right? But I always mentor them and advise them to look under the covers, right? So is it a solid company? Do they have a strong balance sheet? Do they have a strong roadmap? What is their pipeline? Especially now with Salesforce and all the other products that you can use, it's all very statistical, right? So you know exactly how many leads you need to generate sales and keep customers happy, right? So that's one that I don't think changes, and everybody has an obligation to do, whether you're at a low level job or an executive job or in a C-level suite job. You have to look beyond your current role and function, understand how the overall business ticks. That's clearly still very critical.
Yeah, and I have to ask you then on that note as a follow-up, based on your progression in your career, you've done so well since, Creative Labs, when I was with you, working with you and for you, and it was part of your success and your growth in your career, being that you were able to, as you mentioned, look beyond your current title. And so, for example, if you were directing e-com back at Creative Labs at the day, and really understanding financials and seeing it from a bigger picture, that helped you become and grow in your management.
Absolutely, right. So that allows you to leapfrog. You have to decide. Loyalty into a company is one thing. However, you need to look beyond the current company that you're with, right? So, and this is where there's this theme that runs beyond any just individual company. It's all about the people that you know, right? The people that you are connected with, as we just opened up with before the recording. It's hey, if you track the people that you work with, that you like, that you connected with, and where did they go? What industries are they in? What are the competitors are that you're dealing with? It shouldn't be adversarial, right? It should be tough. It should be competitive. But these are people that you're working with, and you'll be at another company at some point. So where I've seen myself progress is always looking for that next opportunity, right? And that may or may not be in the company that you're at. Right. And that's what led me to, people connected me to my next opportunity, not the opportunity itself.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And that's really good for anyone who's looking at the heart of success, is growing your career. It can't just be head down on your just one thing with one company. It's, how do I add more value to the company by understanding the financials, the bigger picture, so I can not only help the company and be a better employee, but also opens up doors in your future. And you clearly have done that. And then you mentioned the people, and it's interesting how both of us have went on to other roles and companies through people that we've known. A lot of them we still in touch with from Creative Labs today.
Yeah.
Is that your testimony? Did I summarize that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because a lot of these job posting, the difference between just applying for a job posting versus staying connected with people that you admire and that you respect. There's a whole additional layer of opportunities that's outside of LinkedIn, right? So that isn't tracked, right? Everybody expects everything to be tracked, but there's a whole spectrum of jobs that happen that may or may not ever get posted or are actually filled before they get posted. And
Right.
that absolutely is by your professional.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to have that with you, Hugh. It was a great being able to work with you back in the early 2000s at Creative Labs. And I was sharing with you earlier that'd be fun for people to relate to is that you, as a manager, one time I wrote you a note and you read the whole thing and you're like, replied with brevity, man, brevity. I just kind of gave you all these paragraphs and I really appreciated your candor and you're wonderful to work with and you're great with people. So maybe just before we move on to the next gears, how do you relate? How have you found your success in relating to people, getting along with people? Is it part of it has been really good, just fun, transparency and having a little sense of humor at work, or how would you describe it?
Absolutely. Humor is so critical, but you also have to understand that people are on their own learning curve, right? So the job of a manager is to motivate and push where necessary.
Mhm.
But that's done, ideally it's done from a mentorship perspective.
Right.
So, but also I think this leads kind of segues into that next topic that I raised, which is you have to stay adaptable and you have to keep learning. And that means from people that that are working for you.
Hmm.
I learned a ton from people who work for me, right?
Right.
And like I say, never be afraid to hire your successor, right? Because that's the way that you're going to grow yourself, and it's also the way to progress the company forward. Frank Slootman, who used to be my ex CEO, he said fives on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Fives hire fives, tens hire tens, right? And you want to know what your contribution is and what your staff's contribution is and can be, so that you can push them beyond what they currently expect that they can do. So you have to stay curious, you have to stay flexible, and you have to be open to new approaches when the old ones don't work.
Yeah.
So those are very critical aspects, I think, to mentoring and management alike.
That's great, Hugh. Thank you for sharing that. The other quote I heard relative to what you just said is the tens, fives hiring fives, is that like B players hire B players, A players bring in other A players. And
That's
so
the
you want to,
danger. Yeah, exactly. So you
all
got,
right,
if you're
great.
a
Well,
five, hire a 10. Don't be afraid of that.
exactly right. You hire your successor. Thank you for that. So shifting gears into the second part, mentioning what you just brought up in the book on page 374. You mentioned that part of your success on a personal level was continuous learning. And you said, always be
Absolutely.
prepared to learn new things and be open, flexible, and adaptive to change. And where else should you be like that in Silicon Valley, the home of innovation and change? But maybe go ahead and elaborate on that. That's similar to the Japanese phrase of kaizen, continuous learning. Maybe you can expound upon how that's been important to you, this continuous learning theme.
Absolutely. Right. So, at any new job you have, there's a learning curve, right? But there's a personal learning curve and then there's a professional learning curve, right? You need to be technically adept at what you are currently doing, but you need to be open to things beyond that, right? So, later, like early in my consulting career, I got an opportunity to visit, like, I think it was probably 150 different suppliers from my vendor, right? And my job was to evaluate them for risk and resiliency. That was the task at hand,
Hmm.
and that opened up new perspectives. Different cultures do things differently. Going into Japan and recognizing that they're still using fax machines, right? So, it was an eye-opening experience, right? So I saw the flip side of my own my own comment of, stay adaptable, keep ahead of the curve, and I saw the danger of people who don't do that.
Right.
Right. So where you stop innovating and you stop being competitive. So I think lifelong learning, recognizing that you are never finished with any given task of learning, and beyond that, pushing yourself to learning a new language or absorbing, not necessarily recognize however you feel about AI, pro or con, recognizing that it does exist and that you need to understand how it works. And so being cognizant of those technological shifts and disruptions, I think, is first and foremost now something that is upon all of us in tech. So that's probably the best example I can pull up.
That's a great example, Hugh. Thank you for that. Yeah, we and you were part of the whole .com e-commerce revolution in the early 2000s and doing the .com initiative at Creative Labs. And now it's this AI, the whole transformation is just, we thought .com was a big deal. It's like, oh
Yeah.
man.
I think there is a little bit of AI wishful thinking, right? And I think this is where, I've talked from a management consulting standpoint. I'm cautioning people, they're putting AI in front of every title. Now it's not
Sure.
CIO, it's AI, and chief information officer or chief AI officer. So, we're a little bit frothy when it
Right.
comes to AI adoption, and we're in that phase. So you need to recognize, okay, that's going to settle down. There's going to be consolidation, right? There's going to be some bankruptcies there's going to be some things in the
Right.
news,
Yeah.
but it's here, right? It's just like the
Yeah.
cloud. It's just like, the PC revolution. So
Right.
you need to understand how those things are going to settle and what work streams, and align yourself with ultimately those that are going to get a consistent monetary stream out of their tool sets.
Yeah, I agree. So power is in how you use it, not that it exists and that it's there. It's like, so what, HTML or .com, but how are you going to use it? And which companies are looking at the fundamentals are going to survive and thrive, right? To your
Yeah.
point, before the .com crash,
Yeah,
will be
the
maybe
fun part, the fun part, and this is like the agentification process is, I mean, we've already got $1 billion company with one employee, so it's really changing the dynamics, and it's a huge shakeup to the industry. And the Joe Tucci, who was the EMC CEO for many years, one of his key value points was disrupting his own business. Right. So he would have teams compete with each other, overlapping, say, 20 to 30%, right, to keep that tension. Now, it's not the most fun to deal with when you're in that kind of environment, but it does drive the right level of innovation.
right.
So I see time and time, I see companies that succeed. It's because of that reason, is they keep that tension.
Yeah, but for forming tiger teams to kind of go at it a little bit in a competitive way to not get complacent. Evolve or die. That whole that book that quote. Thank you. So let's shift gears to the third thing that you mentioned, and that's written in the book that's actually elaborated upon in more depth, but I'll keep it high level for the question is you mentioned to be successful in your personal life as well as you grow into your professional career to achieve there is to be mentored and to look into mentoring others as a way to grow too. Maybe you can share a little bit more about this mentoring aspect. Is that something that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I like that. It's not just a casual thing, right? So I think the companies that do the best is they do foster that officially, right? So in some it's kind of a dotted line, right? But it's somebody that you can approach and that you are connected with professionally, where you strip away the urgency of the day, right? And you're really talking about you as a person and how, and from a 360-degree perspective, having somebody really highlight your blind spots,
Hmm.
and who works with you closely, but can really give you advice and, let you know, hey, look, this is how you come across to people, right? Are you sucking the oxygen out of the room every time you walk into a meeting? Are you listening enough? Are you adapting to aggressive behaviors? Right. So are you
Hmm.
amplifying them? How are you dealing with people? Again, going back to the first point, it is all about the people, right?
Right.
So, people are the ones who are saying yes or no, signing a PO or not, initiating a contract or not. So you
Hmm.
need to work with them. You need to be successful with them. So having that level of mentorship is important. And this could be no, that's the official side. The unofficial
Right.
side is going back to people move around, right? Keeping
Yeah.
track of the people that you respect and connecting with them, say once a quarter, right? Or going to
Yeah.
lunch, or, you know, if you're traveling on business, making a side trip to go visit them and keeping those connections alive to get their perspectives,
Hmm.
especially when you get up to the senior management, VP, C-suite. These are conversations that are happening more frequently than you would think. It's somebody who
Hmm.
you can call and they're going to pick up and they're going to answer your question if you have a certain work crisis or even a personal crisis, right? So people are people. And
Hmm.
as we opened up with before the call, right, it's we go through life changes and that can change your perspective. So I still highly value personal mentorship. You have to seek it out.
Right.
and early and often, especially when,
Mhm.
you know, I probably had out of, I don't know, 50 bosses that I've had in my lifetime, there's probably 3 or 4 that I would put into the category of mentorship capable.
Right.
So keep that short list handy and make sure that you're staying connected with them. Flip side, right? Mentoring others, right, is just as important. So that is a pay it forward value,
Mhm.
and that has to be grounded in your personal levels of respect for people. But seeing the potential in others, offering your mentorship services free of charge, I
Right.
think is also very important. So it's a two-way street, and you're definitely going to learn as much by mentoring as you are from getting mentorship.
Yes, thank you, Hugh, and thanks for serving in a way as a mentor to be part of the book and myself and
Of
my
course,
career and my life. And it's been, hey, this is good. You're mentoring everyone right now just by this podcast, so I
sure
appreciate
thing.
that. And I thought what we would do now is shift into the second part of the podcast, and that is with this question that it's since it's been 10 years, it's an anniversary on this. What has changed in your life, or what new epiphanies do you have now that if we were to sit down, I were to redo the interview? Sure, truth is truth and wisdom is wisdom, and a lot of what we've written here is this you'd carry over. But anything new that you've learned recently that you'd pass
Yeah,
on,
totally.
and
Yeah, totally.
go
So
ahead,
I
yeah.
think that the biggest one is, with time comes perspective. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where mentorship assists with this process. Is as you get older, you kind of get a little set in your ways, right? And that can be a little dangerous. So I think periodically, I'm trying to how to phrase this right, but periodically you have to make sure you are aligned with what matters most.
Hmm.
And I think especially now there's a more even at the younger generational level, there is a recognition that life balance does matter. It's not just a phrase.
Hmm.
It's that it is something that's important, right? They saw their this is kind of the boomer generation, but we saw our parents die early, right? And
Hmm.
they midlife is not 55, right? It's 35, right? If you really calculate that, right? If your average
Hmm.
lifespan is to 75 or 85. So, am I aligned with what matters? Like if work is critically important to you, like a person I work with now, they never see themselves retiring. They don't really have a hobby. So they're just going to continue to work. That's fine for them. Right. But if you have
Hmm.
a hobby that really motivates you, are you aligning part of your life to that? Because is that's
Hmm.
what's going to sustain you when you do, say you do retire, right?
Yeah.
Are you aligned to keep yourself energized? And do you have a valuable friend network? Are you
Hmm.
actively seeking that out? You and I are both kind of active people. You
Right.
with your soccer
Yeah.
and me, I have various workout groups that I hang out with, and it's incredibly fulfilling, right? So for me, I have to align a part of my life with that activity, so I can start to as I shift out of this constant work mode, I can shift
Hmm.
into a mode that is aligned with the rest of my life. So that's probably my biggest recognition of
Right.
something I learned over the last decade.
That's a great advice for any of you out there just about work-life balance, and don't burn out, or don't, it's like you rather, I heard the analogy that if like there's that soap bar in the shower that just over time through service and through giving of yourself, it just slowly dissolves and you've lived a good fulfilling life versus burnt out or breakout. So
Hmm.
keep that work, that healthy balance for
Yeah.
longevity. I can
I,
see the
I,
bike helmets on the
I'll
wall
give you some
behind you.
perspective. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think because the early part of my career, I absolutely super ambitious. It was all about the title, right? Compensation, recognition, and that lasted a couple of years. And then I was like,
Mm.
okay, you achieve it. Is this really what you wanted, right? Because now you have perspective, and to an extent, it was, right? But
Mhm.
that did evolve, right? So having that periodic checkpoint with yourself. Some people meditate, some people write
Right.
themselves notes, or they jot down in a journal, or they speak with a
Mhm.
mentor, and it allows you to do that check-in and make some adjustments, right? So you can say, well, now every Saturday I'm going to start to say no to certain amounts of overtime, right?
Right.
Or work obligations that leak into my personal life. I'm going to ease into that. It doesn't have to be abrupt, but I I I realize how much more critical that is than I would have advised before.
Well, thank you for that. And all that advice is in the book because it's really the heart of success is about balancing your personal and professional life in the right way that can has sustain itself and being healthy long term. And so that's focusing on doing the right thing. What's the right thing? What's the big thing? What's the significance of my life, the meaningfulness of it, and focusing on it. So thank you for that. Going to the last part of the podcast, shifting gears, this is more of the fun part of a favorite quote, and I think you said you might have an update or a bridge to this one, but one of the quotes you shared in the book that I really liked was, "It is what it is." And you went on to elaborate, of course, on that, on being realistic about situations, facing facts objectively, dealing with reality instead of wishing circumstances were different, and accepting what cannot be changed and focusing on what can. But I'll let you elaborate on the quote, "It is what it is," and then anything else you want to add would be great. That'd be wonderful.
Yep, sure. And I thought about that, like when you first reached out to me, and I often said that to do two things. One, because I always often had huge teams, right? So between 5 and 100 or whatever it was, and part of me saying that to people was to force them to recognize when it's time to move on, right? Because you'd have endless speculation, right? There are people who like to circulate on old problems, and it's to kind of force people to say, look, at some point you have to accept the way it is, right? As I mentioned about AI today, it is here, right? It is hugely disruptive. You need to accept that. Your personal feelings on that are another matter, right? But you need to deal with it. It's in front of you. So that part of it is what it is still true today. I think the way I would expand on that, it's not necessarily humorous per se, but if you say it is what it is, but, right, what happens next is up to us. Right. So that is the completion of that phrase, right? So you have to accept reality, but you have to focus on what you can control and take responsibility for that next step and move forward constructively. Right. So you take that finality of, I think that's the main difference of what I used to say is, and some people took it the wrong way. Well, you mean I should accept this problem? Right. So they weren't necessarily motivated by that phrase. But now I would be additive to that saying, however, right, take that as a perspective point. Now you need to make the next choices up to you, and you have a bifurcated road in front of you. So you can make a choice of left or right, A or B, and have a thoughtful decision on what you can control, how you're going to get there, and how you move forward constructively.
Right. Thank you. That's actually a great way to put a ribbon and bow around the quote, "It is what it is," and expound upon it. Because you did also, we mentioned in the book, letting go of the past and moving forward, understand the difference between what is and is not within your control. So you can make choices of how to control it. And Steve Jobs was famous for saying something to what you just said there. He was like, once you realize that life is really something that if you push in on this side can come out, then you realize that a lot of the things were created by people no smarter than you, or it was just people who just pushed on things and tried things and did the things. And to your point, it is what it is, but you can push there and go there, and take it and run and make adjustments, right? Is that a fair correlation?
Yeah, I think, balance, some people just strike for balance, but it's not automatic, right? It's intentional, right? And you need to understand, going back to that life balance comment I mentioned, right? So, work will take up as much time as you allow it to, right? Work, I like to say work, especially on the management side, I say, look, work is going to expand to the time allocated, right? So, balance is not equal every day. You need to let those intrusions, right? You need to put some hard walls against those intrusions and keep that keep to that discipline that you've structured your life to be.
Yeah, thank you. I love that work expands to the amount of time. It just takes 10 hours. It's going to take time. Hey, we need to get this done in 4. It'll get it done in 4. And
Exactly.
And if you want to get something done, give it to the person who's busy, because it doesn't sound like
it. Just management just says, okay, you're inflating that by 20%. So, it's going to get done in 6 hours.
Right. Well, thank you, Hugh. You've been wonderful. I'm so glad that you rejoined after 10 years of this book coming out to share more on the wisdom and advice. How come if people wanted to look you up and learn more about you or your company, what would you recommend they do?
I'm on LinkedIn, Hugh Walker. I'm only a few, so Hugh is not all that common. So More than happy to reach out. I think my contact information is in there. It's up to date. So more than happy to discuss things further if they like.
Thank you, Hugh. I appreciate you being on this podcast together. And thanks again for being part of the book. Well, look forward to being in touch. Well, check it out. Look up Hugh and look up The Heart of Success, and have a great day and make it a wonderful one. Cheers.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks.